Hello and welcome to the Let That Shift Go podcast. I'm Noel.
And I'm Lena.
And this is where we talk about the good, the bad, and all the shift in between.
We'll just talk mad shift.
Let's get into it. And on this week's episode, photo albums. These last couple of weeks, Mom sent us a bunch of photos that she must have been going through boxes and was sending us photos and photos of just all these memories, and it was sparking like so much joy and happiness, and she was sending it to all of us, and we were all kind of reacting separately. But it really brought so much back in terms of like some of the good times, because I've lost all those photos. I don't have any of that stuff. So
I don't either.
I'm so thankful that she kept on those things. So, but it brought up some thoughts for us, and you made a post that completely made me just like bawl.
Oh, it made me bawl too.
And so before we get into that topic, let's do the skin deep cards.
Okay.
And see if we can.
This whole episode is going to be a skin deep card.
I think so. You want to go first?
Sure.
Okay.
I'll go first. What is one thing you never want me to forget about you?
What is one thing I never want you to forget about me?
Come on now, this is the time.
The moment that when you help me to see and recognize that my purpose was more powerful than my pain.
Tell me more about that.
Well, it was through breath work.
Yeah.
It was.
I can see your eyes getting water.
This is going to be one of those episodes. But yeah, it was through breath work and really experiencing and feeling the pain and getting into it and just really tearing down all of those walls within me. Took some time, but then through that, finding kind of modalities and ways to kind of have tools to heal and find ways to expand my consciousness and really just be aware, self-aware, led me to wanting to become a breathwork facilitator. And I got to tell you, the best paycheck in the world, you say it all the time, is watching somebody have their own experience.
Yeah. Their own
breakthroughs, and being able to be a part of that and help facilitate that is where I first recognized, that my purpose is more powerful than my pain.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So it just gave me focus.
Yeah. Getting to walk someone through that and seeing that is the most beautiful reward.
Yeah. So I don't want you to forget the moment.
I won't.
Yeah.
I won't. I love that. There'll be plenty more opportunities.
So my question is, how do our differences complement one another?
I think that we can push each other in all the best ways, like there's times when I'm not motivated or I'm not confident, and there's times when you can just step in and you just have this power and presence, this authority in your voice, this authority in your energy that is something that I can lean on when I can't find my own, and I love that. Like, I think we're different in that you're just always able to, push through. And I think I'm able to push through pretty well.
Yeah.
But there's times when I'm like, I just can't, and I don't know what to do, and I'm not sure. And then you're like, okay, well, let's do this,
How can we?
Yeah. And so there's just the authority in your voice in that is something that I love, and I know I can depend on it, So yeah, I think that's one of the ways. I don't know if it's so much a difference, but I notice that when I don't have it, that you're able to just kind of step in and provide it,
But I kind of feel the same way.
Yeah, so maybe it's not a difference. Maybe it's a similarity.
What would you say is our biggest difference? Like personalities? How are we different?
It's really hard for me to say how we're different.
Because I think we kind of enmeshed so much in the last, couple of years. It's like, I mean, there's definitely, I would say you're a lot more risk adverse than me.
Yes. And you know what? Here's a difference. You're way better at calling.
Oh, yes. Okay.
1,000%.
1,000%.
You get on the phone and you call. I don't. I don't. And so that's where I think I'm so thankful for that difference.
Yeah. Otherwise, we probably won't talk that much.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I'm like, yeah, he knows. You're like, you just like, yeah, and I know I'm going to call you. I want to talk. I'm like, okay. So I'm glad that you do that because I am call avertant. Adverse. I'm call adverse.
Yeah. I love that you can stay calm through the adversity. I think when there's a challenge, you kind of freak out. But when there's, I don't know how adversity is different than a challenge. It's like when we went on that walk at the Devil's Bridge, that kind of a thing. That like that's not that. But when it's something serious that has to do with like the wellness of us, like you tend to take that authority.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You tend to have that part. So I think we do balance each other in that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm risk avoidant, but when something happens because something has happened, I don't freak out. Yeah, like I'm just like, all right, we're gonna just do it. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
All right. So let's get into this topic about the photo albums, taking a stroll back in memory lane.
Yeah. And this one, like, we didn't really plan this podcast out. I think we just started talking, and it's like, ooh, this is really
A lot of emotions.
Yeah, it's really alive for us. And there was one photo of you and I on this swing set, and it was one of the times where you would come over to visit on the weekend because we didn't grow up in the same house.
Yep.
We were separated, and you came over to visit, and we were swinging on the swing set, and we got the photo of us each jumping off the swing set.
Yeah, and I remember that swing set vividly because it was, that metal swing set where when we were trying to swing so hard, like the corners would pop up.
Yeah.
Poles would be coming off the ground, and our dad would be like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And we were like,
we'd have to swing separately so it'd keep it balanced.
Yeah, keep it balanced. Yeah, I remember that. It was such a fun swing set. Yeah.
Yeah. So we got these photos. And I posted them with this video of us, and it was about just being really thankful for my brother.
Yeah.
And when you saw it and you said, yeah, I remember that because I remember that outfit that I had to put on, or I put on because I made a point to get dressed up.
Yeah.
And I remember you had this bomber jacket and you looked so, put together, and you were probably like 7. And when you told me that, and now when I look at the photo, it like choked me up. Because I thought, gosh, the fact that my brother had to think about getting dressed up to come see me and see my dad is just so odd,
Yeah, I don't know why I thought of it like that. But when I saw the jacket, I just thought, well, I look really dressed up for, we didn't have a lot of money back then. So that in itself was like, ooh, that's like my Sunday best.
Yeah.
And so that's what I recognize it as. And I just went, oh. I remember getting dressed up. I always remember waiting for Dad to pick me up, or I'm going to go over there, and I would always have these outfits on.
Yeah.
And sometimes he wouldn't show up. You know? And those were the hurtful times. But whenever it would, and I think maybe that's why I put so much effort into it, because I wanted it to be so perfect when I went over there. And thinking about that now, just like, oh,
yeah,
it really pulls at me because.
Yeah.
We didn't spend a lot of time together, and the fact that I had to, I just put so much effort into it. It brought me back to just how present I was about that specifically.
Yeah.
In those days.
Yeah. It made me think about that. It's so messed up, like that. We didn't get to grow up together, and that there was even a thought about, well, I want to wear this so that when I go to my dad's or see my sister, that this is what I'm wearing to play on the swing set. And not that that's neither bad nor good. It just made me think about the circumstance in which we grew up. And then, we started to talk about like how, you build a life, like from that, you try to build a life that doesn't, if it was painful, that doesn't look like the life you came from.
Yeah, we tried so hard to
not be our parents, or to not be in a split household, or to look a certain way, or to project a certain way, because we were trying to do it the extreme opposite.
Yeah, I think both you and I the way that we're the same is that we both adopted the mindset that there's no fucking way my kids and my family are going to do that.
Yeah.
And
I mean, that's the thing. I think both of us built a life that was based on, I won't do that, or I will not be in that situation, or I will not fill in the blanks, right?
which is such a sad thing because it was never, I'm going to be this, I'm going to be that. I'm not going to be that, and I'm not going to be that.
Yes.
So it wasn't very goal oriented. It was
avoidance.
It was avoidance.
It was an avoidant oriented.
Yeah.
So I would, just in looking back, what it brought up for me was, wow, what are all the things I did for the first half of my life that were based on fear, that were based on avoiding judgment. And that was a really hard way to live or to maintain, because it wasn't based on what you really
felt
consciously wanted or would choose. It was, for me, there was, I grew up in a house that was really messy, and I remember getting made fun of, in school because a kid came over and the house was just like a wreck, and at school, he went to school and he had to come over to our house to be babysat in the morning. And when we went to school, he said, "Oh yeah, Lena's house is really dirty." And I remember this deep shame that I had, right? And so in growing up and creating my own home, I developed this extreme need for perfection in my home.
Yeah.
So you would come
Your
to my
home was
house-
always like a model home.
Oh yeah, it was like, why is the
Didn't your home get into a magazine?
It did. And it was like I would be crazy if the vacuum lines weren't all the same way with the same pattern, or if you left something out. And it was just so, it was stressful, to try and be perfect. It created this whole thing about perfect, how my house looked, how my kids looked. And then, there was this, you'll never make it. Your marriage won't make it. You got to, everything has to be on an outward appearance of being perfection.
Yeah.
And it was literally like killing me.
Yeah.
I couldn't let anybody know if anything was wrong. I couldn't let anything look like it wasn't perfect. And that was really stressful. And it created like a lot of self-hatred, I think. It wasn't because, I like it this way. I did like it that way.
But why did you feel like you couldn't tell everybody else, or why?
Because then I'd be weak and I had to be strong.
I share that. Yeah.
Yeah. If I admitted that I was having a bad day or that I wasn't in a good mood, then that was seen as a weakness.
Or for me, I feel when I'm hearing you say that, if I would admit it, I feel like I'm admitting I'm like my mom or my dad.
Yeah.
I'm admitting failure, like, oh, I really am them.
Yeah.
I'm failing.
Yeah.
So I got to keep this up.
Yeah. I think if we look back, there's a lot of ways that we each, in our own way, created a life that really amplified what are the things that we were trying to not be. Yeah.
I mean, very specifically, I had a thing where I always, if you look at my cabinets now, they're overstocked with snacks. It's just ridiculous because I didn't have anything in my cabinets.
Yeah.
I literally had no food sometimes. And so now I'm like, my kids will never not have food. It's going to be stacked, whatever they need. And it's too much.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I try to give my kids everything I didn't have. But it ended up causing other problems. It all falls apart eventually.
Yeah.
Because it's a facade.
Yeah. The thing is too, I want to recognize is that doing this for a good part of our lives in some ways saved us.
Oh, yeah.
Because we were trying to overcorrect, right? So we built these very successful looking lives, and to some degree successful lives. Like, for you, like I'm looking at your life and you live in a beautiful home, you have a beautiful family, you've gone on all these trips, like all of the things like that tick the boxes.
Yeah.
And so in some way it's like, yeah, it actually saved us. We didn't end up, on drugs. We didn't end up, like in violent relationships. We didn't end up breaking our homes up in early stages, for our kids. And so, yeah, in some ways it served us very well.
Yeah. We weren't willing to fail in that way.
Yes.
It kept us motivated to stay the course.
Yes.
Because I told myself my cabinets are going to be stocked. My kids are only going to go to the same, they're going to live in one home and they're going to go to the same elementary, middle school, high school, and then they're going to move on, and they're not going to have to transfer around a bunch of times and make new friends just like I did.
Yeah.
And I had all these things just set that I wanted to do, but it was at a great cost, I think, in the very end.
Yeah, that's the thing I think I want to recognize is that an honor, is that, we created a life that was motivated by really avoiding the situations and the patterns we didn't want to repeat, but they were out of fear, They were, I don't know that they were necessarily a conscious choice to have, I want to have a clean home and I want to have nicest. Yes, absolutely. But what it was costing emotionally was, and you know who paid was our families and ourselves, right?
Because that's what we wanted. It's not necessarily what they wanted.
No, I don't think my kids cared about the perfect house, or any of that. I think that in some ways they may have preferred a healthy mother.
Yeah.
Who could be completely present instead of like, I need to clean this up. I don't have time for that right now. I have to do this. I need to, maintain this thing, this outward appearance, and at what cost? So while they, they all have grown up to be wonderful human beings and all of that, and I'm so grateful for that. But there was this unconscious way of creating this life that was costing. There was depression. There was trying to keep up with something that was impossible. And at some point it did cost me. It almost cost me my marriage. And for you, it almost cost you yours. It almost cost you for me, it almost cost me my life at one point, And so I just think that I'd like to bring some awareness to that, like to people, is that, create the life you want because you want it in a way that you're aware of why you're doing it. And if it's just out of avoidance and you're afraid of what people will think of you, or that you need to maintain a certain image or mask of perfection, is to know that that's not necessary. All of those healthy things can be created from a healthy place, but knowing when it's costing you, because it did.
And what's costing your family.
What it's costing your family. Yeah. Because while things would always look really probably perfect on the outside, I know for me, we'd be on our way somewhere. Everybody has to look perfect, right? Get the right shoes on, the right clothes on. I need you to look this way and be this way. And the whole way to the gathering, we're arguing. And then you got to walk in and you better have a smile on your face.
Yeah.
And don't you tell anybody what we said in the car.
Yeah.
It's like, wait a minute. I just made everybody unhappy on the way here so that other people would think we were great.
Okay, shrug it off, guys. Shrug it off. We're going inside. Ready? Okay, look normal. You got tears. Wipe off your tears. Let's go.
Look happy.
Stop crying.
Everybody look happy.
Smile.
Yeah. And it's like, no.
Yeah.
I would have done it a lot differently.
But I wonder why sometimes other people don't, they continue the pattern or follow the same ways. And what is it that makes some people go the extreme opposite? And what is it that makes other people stay the same? I don't know what that is, because for me, I know I just had to be different.
Like when we were talking, it's kind of like it could go 50-50.
Yeah.
Either you go, I'm not doing that and I'm going to overcorrect, or why don't I just do that? Like my dad did, like not our dad, but I mean, like in general, if you're talking about, you grew up in an alcoholic family and you're like, well, there's permission to also follow that.
Yeah.
Or there's just so much pain. That's the only way that you saw anybody cope.
Yeah.
And so that becomes a coping mechanism for you. So either way you could pay, either way it can fall apart. And I don't think it's really thought of in the same way when you've tried to overcorrect, and that also costs you.
Well, and in some ways I and I've said this many times before, is I self-justified my actions by in my household, I was beaten with belts and hands and fists and pinched and punched, everything. And I told myself I'm not doing that to my family.
Yeah.
But I just manifested in a different way and used my words, which in some ways were much more powerful.
Yeah.
And so I told myself that I wasn't doing it.
Yeah.
But because it was fake and I had not really dealt with the things, it just came out in a different way. And I think that's still, even probably for you, you can probably think of something that was along those lines, because I felt like I was not going to be, I'm not going to do hard drugs, right? Okay. I mean, I avoid, and now I don't drink because of my relationship with alcohol, but it's one of those things like, yeah, okay. I totally stayed away from those crazy drugs because I was like, oh man, I don't want to be that. Anything with a crack pipe looking thing, I just can't. It's needles. I am out. I can't, because of the things I've been exposed to and I've seen, I'm out. It's a hard pass. But in other ways, I've just filled that with something else.
Yeah.
Because it was fake, I think.
Yeah.
So while I say we didn't do the other things, I think it's a little bit grandiose to say I went a different way because I tried to do the opposite. Because in some ways, as I was listening to you talk, I had to admit to myself and really be accountable that I really did still do some of those things just in a different way.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Because
you just you repeated patterns, incrementally less damaging.
Yeah.
But still damaging.
Yeah.
And a lot of it, I think the big thing is like just realizing when you're making choices and you're creating a life out of avoidance rather than out of choice.
Yeah.
You know, and why is that? And we talk so much about like recognizing patterns. And, you know, last episode was on unconscious incompetence to conscious competence. And I think it's all in line with that. It's just really kind of seeing, you know, why do I do the things I do and how did it cost me and or is it? And in this whole thing, it was just tracing back to these photos and looking at like, that was painful.
Yeah.
And then being like, I was trying to avoid that pain. What kind of life did I create by trying to avoid that pain? And what did that actually cause? You know, because for me, it was probably a lack of presence with my kids because I was trying to create this outward looking life rather than nurturing the inward life.
Yeah, I really thought it would fix it. It would fix what was needed to be healed in me by creating a life that wasn't what was my childhood.
Yeah.
But it didn't work.
In the end, I mean, you know, you got to pay the piper. So I feel like, you know, we got to the second part of our lives and went, oh,
yeah,
I didn't know I was doing that. That's that conscious, you know, incompetence or conscious competence. And I think there's just a little bit of grieving.
Yeah.
You know, like when I was looking at the photos, there was a little bit of that grieving of like, wow, you know, that was hard. And looking at that, it's like, wow, we did everything to avoid that.
Yeah.
But in some ways, you know, we did it out of fear and we did it out of avoiding pain. And I just don't think I'm at the point in my life where I want to create anything that's out of fear or out of avoidance.
Yeah, because that's survival.
That's survival. Yeah. And when you're surviving, you're not necessarily thriving.
Yeah.
So I think it's just, you know, wanting to bring a little bit of awareness to that is like, are you creating a life that is based on avoidance, you know? And in some ways, like I said, it saved us.
Yeah.
You know?
It was a coping mechanism that saved me from a lot of bad things.
Yeah.
It gave me such street smarts. I mean, incredible street smarts. It just gave me so much life experience.
Gave us a lot of character.
Yeah.
And humor.
Oh, you got to be able to laugh. I think laughter is the only thing that saved me.
Yeah, I think so too. If you can't make fun of yourself, I mean.
The sarcasm in our family and all that stuff,
Yeah. Yeah.
We had a lot of funny characters in our family.
Yeah, who doesn't? But it was interesting. It was interesting. I learned a lot. You know, but yeah, I love looking back through old photos and just recognizing, like seeing you as a child and seeing us playing and what was going on in those moments and just really kind of bringing a nurturing to those parts of ourselves.
Yeah.
And in this, you know, even going back through and looking at how, for me, perfection became such a strong motivator. And the breaking point was when I was like, I just can't do this. Like, it's not sustainable. I'm not happy. I'm actually really lonely or broken and I don't want to keep doing this. You know, it kind of led to this point of the change then, of the shift of how can I do this differently? And I really hadn't thought about the narrative of how we did create lives out of fear and avoidance. And while there's still some honoring in that and knowing like, yeah, we did a lot better than what we were given. But it still cost.
I wonder how other people experience going through things like that. If other people had an exercise where they were like, oh, you know what? I'm going to go through that. There's a box in my garage or in my attic and I'm going to go through these photos and they're all faded and they got that orangish tint, from way back in the day. And maybe it has something similar to like what happened with us.
Yeah.
I mean, because your mom sent them in streams of like maybe 10 here and there, and then she would put little messages, and it was just like,
Yeah.
but it bring happiness, but at the same time, it brought back
Memories
that I think it brought me back to like when I was on that swing set, and it was making me think just like that. It was like, wow, almost bringing me back into my mindset into those times and thinking like, what was I thinking at that time? And that's why I asked myself, I remember getting dressed up. Like I had to put my Sunday best on, because so many times it's like, and I can't tell you how many times I dressed up like that. Nobody came, and that's, remember that post you sent me from Logic where he was doing a interview with his father. And he was talking about those times that he waited, for his dad. His dad promised he would come pick him up, and all those times that he didn't. And then he has a son of his own now, and he thinks about like how much he loves his son and how much he means to him, and how he could never do that to his son. And that's the way I really feel. And at the end, he said something that just completely floored me, and it was, "I am a man of my word today, because you aren't."
Yeah.
And he said that to his dad. And I was like, wow.
Yeah.
That's what I could say that with complete conviction to dad.
Yeah.
And mean it fully. And know that is one of the reasons why I do the opposite.
Yeah.
And I try to be a man of my word, because he always late, never showed up on time. And like you said, going to parties, like, come on guys, we got to be here. We got to be here. Why? Because I feel this need to be on time and present and all these things because of all the times of pain.
Because of pain.
Yeah. It's just pain.
Yeah.
And not being able to avoid that anymore.
Yeah.
And really have to sit with that, be present with it now.
It's like you're grateful and you're sad at the same time in some ways. It's like, I'm grateful that, it pushed me to create a life that was a lot more stable than what I grew up with or what you grew up with. But acknowledging that there was some pain in it, and acknowledging that the motivation wasn't always coming from a good place. And, the question to ask is like, how would I have done it differently?
Yeah.
How would I have done it differently?
If that question brings up for me is, I think I would try to switch from saying what I won't do to what I want.
Yeah.
Because I think, in terms of how people talk about manifestation, and it's like calling in all the bad things, in some ways I feel like the universe I was calling in all those things, but I don't want that. I don't want that. I want that. What does that say? You're bringing all those things, which is why the patterns kept coming just in a different way.
Yeah.
I don't want that. I don't want this. I never said what I wanted, or I didn't live as if I was in survival, and completely trying to deny either that the things happened to me and shut it out and suppress it out, or, most of the stuff didn't even talk to anybody about it.
Yeah.
So, just really trying to create something different doesn't always pan out.
Yeah.
Unless you're conscious or mindful about it,
Yeah. I think it's just being aware.
Yeah. But I don't know that I wish I could have changed anything, because what would that have changed? I mean, it might change my story arc, and looking back at those photos, I look back and I think, wow, each one of those, it brought so much joy. And then when you posted that, then I kind of looked at the photos. It's like reading a book for the second time. It was like, now I'm pulling something different.
Yeah.
And especially when you played those, I was thinking about each time. I was like, and even one of the photos, I had a drink in my hand, and I think we were at Robert's house, and I was like, that was old fashioned. I was like, I used to like those. And I'm like, I don't like that photo. I don't like having alcohol in my hand, but it's a time for me.
Yeah.
It was each one of the photos that you posted brought me back to a space where I can appreciate where I was at and where I am now.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. I think if there was anything to leave people with is to go back through your timeline, and look at where you've been, where you are, where do you want to go, and are you creating that life out of what you want and not out of fear or not out of avoidance, and to go for that.
Yeah, and maybe also, I mean, you and I have this tight relationship now, but I know there's a lot of other people now that want to have relationships with their siblings. and don't for whatever reason. But maybe going back to those photos and seeing and remembering all the things that you share, the tapestry of your lives together. You know, siblings are the one person or the few people that, share your DNA and share your experience.
Have your history.
And all that stuff. And a lot of times people, to this day, so many people don't speak with each other.
Yeah.
I heard another story today. It was like, they haven't talked in a year now. And it was like, I just see so much of that.
It can be a missed opportunity, especially if you can recognize a willingness in each other for something deeper, and you're not just stuck on old stories. Like, who is this person that you probably chose to be in family with on some level? Yeah. Why did you choose them? And what is your shared experience, and what is your perception of theirs, and what is their perception of yours? It may be completely different stories, but maybe just opening up conversation to see what that is and see if there's something there that can go deeper.
You never know if you don't ask.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, that's been another episode of Let That Shift Go podcast. I'm Noel.
And I'm Lena. Let us know what your questions are, and we'd love to use them on a future episode. Or check us out on Insta at Let That Shift Go, or visit our website, serenitycovetemecula.com.